Okay, so a note about this game, and I think it'll circle back to something that's very important. Detroit needs to make Atlanta go the length of the field. So far this year, Atlanta, now again, everything is small sample size, so we're just kind of figuring out who everybody is. But through 2 games, do you know how many scoring drives Atlanta has more than 67 yards? 2. Detroit has 5. Okay? Now, the average Atlanta scoring drive is 52.6 yards. They've taken advantage of some very good field position to get field goals and touchdowns. And one of their touchdown drives is like 17 yards long. So, circle back to Dan Campbell. It's okay to punt. It's okay to pin them deep. Make them do that. Make them drive. And I think their 2 drives are 75 yards that went for scores. Detroit has 5 drives of that length that ended up as a scoring drive. So it's okay to punt and play field position for this game. And I think it's just an interesting test of whether or not that early trend is truly indicative of a Desmond Ridder-led offense that, look, they're going to need help from their defense and special teams, but make them go the length of the field. And, something that Ben Johnson said in that soundbite we played earlier about the end of regulation and how they played it and how they were on the same page and they knew what they were doing and this is why they wanted to do it that way. And then a follow-up question was asked and he said, well, each week's different. I'm going to assume, and I think it's a pretty safe assumption, that each week is different, and that includes 4th down gambles. And Dan Campbell did mention in his interview with Stoney and Jansen on Tuesday, I think it was, that essentially, in so many words, he said, I was trying to steal possession from a team that's hard to stop. And that's why he went for it in his own territory. But this feels like a game where it's okay to punt, Dan. It's okay to punt.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But everything is situational. Depends where you're at, and how the game flow is going, who's available to you, strengths, weaknesses, tendencies, all that is going to come into play. And he has all that information, which we do not.
Right.
So, again, it comes down to what is Dan Campbell. If they find themselves in a 4th and 2 situation from their own 47-yard line, again, and you look at down to distance where it is that is down to distance. If you look at the time in the game, what quarter they're in, what the score is, all that has to be taken into consideration. But all things being equal, in a typical situation, 4th and 2 from their own 47, I'm going to guess that they're going to go for it because that's what he does.
I'm going to say that he doesn't. Like we've talked about each week, try to predict the trick play. I don't think there's going to be the trick play in this one. I think this is one that you don't need to do that. Now, you could possibly get impulsive, and you could possibly, because like everything worked against, you mentioned down distance score, where you are field position. Almost every single one of those things worked against what I would have decided that you're on your own 45-yard line. I'm not doing it there. It's 4th down and 2. It's not 4th and an inch. You're winning the game. You're not losing the game. And it's starting to get late. Like they're the ones that should be playing with a little bit more sense of desperation to take chances, but more so than the team that is leading.
But there is part of you that could understand why you would want to do that, because if you get the first down, then you continue the drive and you could absolutely snuff out any possibility of a comeback. Now, I know the retort to that is, well,
at what
if
cost?
if you don't get it, then look what happens, and you're leading to a comeback. But I mean, I'm not saying it's a decision that you should expect that works all the time, and that this is something that he should do every time. But I'm kind of just accepting of it because that's the kind of coach that he is. I get nervous when you're inside your 40. That's when I start getting nervous. You're going to do things like that. Then it has to be like, it better be 4th and inches or 4th and 1 at best, and the push play is going to get you the first down every time. Mm-hmm. Do that. 2 yards that's a long way to go if you're going to take your gambles inside your own zone. But at the 45, you're almost midfield. Doesn't bother me that much.
So anyway, I think this game, if you take Ben Johnson's words earlier in the show, we played the soundbite. Each game's different. I look at Atlanta, and they haven't had a ton of long drives. Get the defense a little confidence, but give them a long field to have to travel to get scores. Don't be afraid to punt this one.